So the 78th anniversary of Israeli independence. Were there a lot of Muslims here?
I think I was the only Muslim. I was a solo act today.
And you didn't make a secret of it, right? You're wearing a chain that identifies what?
It means Allah. It means, oh, yes, I will hold this up. This is an Allah chain. So, yes, this is the God. Yeah. This is the God of Abraham, Isaac, Moses, Ishmael, and Muhammad. As Muslims identify it as. It's an Arabic symbol.
Was Jacob a prophet in...
Jacob was a prophet in Islam as well. And the 12 tribes are mentioned in the Quran. And in the chapter called The Night Journey in the Quran, it actually says Jews are an exalted people as well. Yeah. Jews are an exalted people as well. In the Quran. There's pro-support, and it does talk about the Promised Land, how Moses had led the Israelites to the Promised Land, the stories about the children of Israel as well. So there's a lot of Quranic support for accepting a Jewish state, in my opinion, in the way I interpret the Quran.
And doesn't the Quran also say that Israel is for B'nai Israel?
It says that, I don't know if it says those words precisely the way you articulated it. However, it does say that it does mention the word Promised Land, and it does mention instances, for example, the Babylonian exile period. So there is recognition of Israel. Israel's mentioned, I think, over 30 times in the Quran. The word Israel is mentioned over 30 times in the Quran. So it even says that this book given to Muhammad is similar to the book given to Prophet Moses as well. Moses is considered a prophet in Islam. And yes, and that's the type of interpretation that I would like to see Muslims really reinvigorating, reinterpreting their faith. And I think by doing that, I think there could be tolerance with the concept of Zionism, because there's 22 Arab Muslim majority countries, landmass spanning thousands and thousands of miles. And so from a Muslim perspective, I'm okay with my brothers in faith having their tiny little plot of land, X number of miles, and the one and only Jewish religious and ethnic majority state in that region. Totally acceptable to me.
Because unlike in Saudi Arabia, isn't Judaism tolerated? I mean, isn't Islam tolerated in Israel?
Absolutely, and this is where there's misinformation, and this is what I would like to educate my Muslim brothers and sisters and others that are not Muslim who may not be educated on this topic, is that there are 30% of Israel's population is Muslim, Arab Muslim. So you have about 2 million Arab Muslims who have fully assimilated and there are Arab Israeli citizens per capita with full rights. And let me just add to this. Let me add to this. Not only full rights, they're doctors, dentists, judges. Arabs have pharmacists. Arabs have their own businessmen, businesswomen. There are some, and Arabs are not forced to join the IDF. They can volunteer to join the IDF, and there are some Arab, Israeli, Muslim IDF soldiers as well. And not only that, there's Arab political parties as well. Can you name me a Jewish political party in an Arab country? No, not a zilch, right? And on top of that, let me add one more thing, is that Arabs have, there's mosques in Tel Aviv, there's religious toleration, and per capita GDP. Sorry, my economic hat is coming on. But Arabs in Israel are the most economically prosperous and wealthiest Arabs compared to Arabs in Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan, and Syria. Per capita GDP per person, per Arab in those countries is about $4,000 per person. Guess what it is in Israel? About north of $40,000 dollars per person, per 47,000 per capita per person. Yes, per person. 47. That's 10x more as far as wealth that an Arab Israeli enjoys compared to Arabs in Lebanon, Iraq, Jordan, Egypt, Syria.
But wouldn't that just make other Arabs jealous of the Israeli society and want to see it come down, to see other Arabs doing better than them because of Israel?
I can't speak for all Arabs, but I'm sure that sentiment does exist. And I'm sure I think jealousy against Jews has been part of their history. Jealousy against Jews. Hence, you have a lot of Jews conspiracy theorists for how many thousands of years, right? Yeah. And so I think jealousy against Jews is also a motivation to hate Jews and to destroy the state of Israel.
And is that advocated by many of those governments? Like Egypt, as an example?
There has been progress, however. There has been progress. So this is a sign, a small glimmer of hope. And this is the kind of Middle East that I want to see. Once the cancer of Iran, who's that last stronghold of intense hate and are willing to act on their hate towards Jews to wipe out the only Jewish state.
Once the Mullah regime?
Once the Mullah regime is dealt with, and the permanent solution is regime change. Now, I'm not a military tactician, so I don't know how that's going to happen, all the details about it, but the permanent solution is regime change to where we were at. It could be a constitutional monarchy, but some kind of pro-Western regime that we had during Reza Shah Pahlavi's time. He was far superior. And I unfortunately blame the Jimmy Carter administration for their error that they did. You know what Jimmy Carter administration's error was? His error was not providing firm, full support to the Shah of Iran to quell the revolution. And when Reza Shah had cancer, he asked Jimmy Carter to have, and he was our ally for 40 years. When Yom Kippur happened, there was an Arab oil embargo. He was the only country exporting oil to America. Wow. Yes, and so he was our staunch ally. Not saying he was perfect, but let me tell you this. Reza Shah said, I hated the Jimmy Carter State Department. One week they said that they would support me. The next week they said to support the Ayatollah regime. I'm like, he was confused. When they interviewed him, he was talking about this. And one of his good friends, former President Richard Nixon, Barbara Walters interviewed Richard Nixon in the early 80s. This is, I think, after Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, the former Shah of Iran, passed away from brain cancer. And so Richard Nixon, he actually, Barbara Walters says, well, wasn't the Shah of Iran an autocrat, a dictator, or this or that? Richard Nixon provided a great response to Barbara Walters. He says, listen, the question is not whether he was a great guy or perfect. I'm sure the Shah had flaws just like any other leader. But the question is, who do we have, someone better or worse? And arguably, the Ayatollah regime is better and worse. And also, he also made a distinction between authoritarian versus totalitarian. Authoritarian means that the governing body, in this case the king, has some authority. Yes, his secret police, the Savak, would put leftist communists who wanted to overthrow the regime, would imprison some political leftist communists who wanted to overthrow the regime, maybe some of the radical mullahs. Okay, but authoritarians don't regulate every aspect of your life in terms of what you wear. If you want to go grab a drink at a bar, if you want to go work, if women work or if they don't work, if they want to listen to music, dance to music, have parties or concerts. Totalitarian, that's the Ayatollahs. Totalitarians regulate every aspect of your life. In Iran, if I just bob my head to music, the religious police in Iran, if I just bob my head to music, the religious police will punish me. Iran is a totalitarian, radical Islamic theocracy. So Jimmy Carter, we're paying for Jimmy Carter's mistake for not supporting the Shah of Iran, who was pro-Western. Tehran could have been the Paris of the Middle East, right? Even looked better than, I talked to Persians in LA. They said Tehran looks better than LA during the Shah's time in the 70s. When they describe the infrastructure, the rights, the style of dress, clothes, and appearances. And so we are paying for the mistake of Jimmy Carter. These key decision points have a ripple effect for generation after generation after generation. So what's going on in Iran is very important. So we have to destroy this radical Islamic regime. They have to be dealt with. There's no way that they can have nuclear weapons. And if you look at the former president in 2014, his name slips my mind, but that president said something very interesting. This was a radical Islamic, part of the radical Islamic theocracy. By the way, 70 to 90% of the Iranian people don't support their government, from the recent estimates that I've heard. But going back to my previous point, in 2014, the president of Iran, he said that, in a statement, he said that, listen, if Israel attacks us with a nuke, we have 90 million people. We're about 3 to 5 times the landmass size of Israel. If they attack us with a nuke, okay, 10 million of our people die. But Israel is a one-bomb state. We just throw in one nuke in there and they're wiped out. He said that. So there's no way that Iran can have nuclear weapons. And
well, there's a way that they can, but should they be allowed to?
Oh, good question. They should not be allowed to, because nukes means who uses what entity is going to adapt and receive nuclear weapons, and what's the probability of them using those nuclear weapons. And so Iran, if you look at their ideology and their death cult, I'm talking about the regimes with the ayatollahs, they believe in martyrdom. They believe that, hey, if we die, if we're alive, if we are alive or if we are dead, we are successful. That's what the Iranian regime believes, and that is dangerous. Why do we not care if Israel has nuclear weapons or France? Because we're not scared that they're going to use them. We don't worry that they're going to use them, because this is a battle. When you look at foreign policy and you look at the nature of politics, the difference is between what's better and what's worse. What is better and what's worse? There's no such thing as a perfect society, but there's a society that is more civilized and less civilized. And so we want to make sure and we prevent less civilized societies from having nuclear weapons, especially if they're claiming that they are willing and open to use them. That is a threat to the region. And if Iran uses it, then Saudi Arabia wants nukes, all the Arab allies, it's going to be a shit show, right? So that is problematic in my opinion. So we have to stop it. Because regional stability, to protect our moderate Sunni Arab allies, to protect Israel, and they're an existential threat to us. Before Maduro's collapse recently, a couple months ago.
In Venezuela.
In Venezuela, correct. Venezuela and the Iranian government signed a allegiance pact, and Iran was ready to ship ballistic missiles to Venezuela, pointing it at the U.S. Right. So again, peace through strength, that is the key. So it's good that America shows its dominance in the world, that we are willing to eradicate threats or contain.
Would you trust the mullah's regime to hold to any written agreement?
So let me tell you about treaties. Treaties don't mean anything unless there's force behind it. I don't think that the mullahs will uphold any agreement. And if they do, that means that we have to have a small naval base in the Strait of Hormuz for the next 50 years for that treaty to be enforced. Just like the failure of the Oslo Accords. Yasser Arafat, radical Islamic groups or radical leftist entities, treaties don't mean anything. Remember, democratic nations tend towards peace, radical groups tend towards war. So you have to have that understanding when you're going into the table. And if you ever do a deal, there has to be force. Yasser Arafat was supposed to imprison terrorists. He released terrorists and paid terrorists to attack Israelis during the Oslo Accords, which was a big failure.
What about the political pressure that Trump is under now, given the price of gasoline and how it might be used against him in the upcoming elections? He might be pressured to leave this regime in power and just get away with an agreement. Would that be sufficient for you?
That would be very disappointing. If it could be better. If it's better than the Obama deal, I will still be disappointed. But I could still say that if there is a deal, it could still be better. Maybe they'll have something where they delay. It's not a permanent solution because we have to attack them again. But let's say if they have a deal where it's 20-year delay before they can enrich uranium, they should not be allowed to enrich uranium whatsoever, in my opinion. Perfect world, if I were to wave a magic wand, it would be complete regime change. But if that's not the practical reality, because you brought up some practical realities, there could be a deal where they cannot fund any terror proxies. They have to open up the Strait of Hormuz, no tolls, no attacks, and no enrichment of uranium for X number of years. I'll take it, but I will not be a happy person. I will take it. I'll not be a happy person.
Would it last?
It's possible that it would not last. So then there would have to be teeth behind it. So here's the thing. I'm going to be quite frank, and this is my opinion, is that I have some clients, and I have a couple friends who I know who live in Israel. One leans more on the left, one left of center, one leans more right of center.
The Israelis.
The couple individuals that I know who live in Israel currently, I spoke with them this week. The friend that I know who's right of center, he lives in Jerusalem, and he mentioned this, and I sort of agreed with his sentiment, is that Israel needs to maintain independence. I think maybe not so much with this current administration, but Israel has had restrictions from the U.S. to make war when necessary. So if the U.S. pulls out, then I think it's better for Israel to do what they can do to obtain complete military independence, to do whatever they have to do.
From the U.S., you mean?
Yes.
Independence of...
Yes. Complete military independence. And the reason why I say that is, like I said, that in a previous discussion, that President Trump may be the last pro-Israel president. And so Israel has to look out for its own interests after that point, if that's the case. And Biden issued a lot of restrictions on Israel, Obama, a lot of presidents. So they wanted to take action. They wanted to send special forces. But a lot of times, the U.S. government restricts them from them taking action. So I think for Israel, I think the goal, and I think Netanyahu has mentioned this, that eventually he wants to have complete independence. I think that's the way to go. And the reason why I say this is that it's really possible that because of political pressure, like you mentioned, that Trump may do a pullout, and I'll be disappointed. And so my hope is that Israel and maybe the Arab allies take on the torch from the U.S. and get done what needs to get done. That is my hope. I think that's more of a practical reality. I don't mind if the U.S. stays in there for 6 more months, to be honest. I personally don't mind. But unfortunately, Hamas won the public relations war here in the U.S.
Yeah, but wouldn't Iran strike the Saudi oil and and the other countries' infrastructure that would drive oil up without the U.S. involved?
But I think that Israel, I don't mind the U.S. being involved. I'm just saying if the U.S. isn't involved, then I think that's where the Arab allies in Israel needs to take action if that happens, and not take lip service from anybody. Just take unilateral action and do what you got to do. You have the green light. That's it. So I think that would be a practical reality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we got a little off track
Sure.
asking